60 Minutes Rewind.
While the rest of the country has gone on with its life, Ground Zero, the World Trade Center site, has been, in a sense, frozen in time. September 11th never ended there. It has endured in the recovery work every day and every night nonstop. Now, after 233 days, it is almost over. In terms of concrete and steel, what you're about to see is something close to a miracle. But in terms of flesh and blood, there's a limit to what can be done. It's likely most of those lost will never be found. Lower Manhattan hasn't looked like this since 1968. Now that the clock is about to start moving again, here is a reckoning of what was found, what was lost, and what comes next. After September 11th, the World Trade Center was a mountain of misery. 1,500,000 tons of wreckage and nearly 3,000 people to be found inside. It started moving hand over hand, one bucket at a time, and it has not stopped for a single hour since that day. Now, almost 8 months later, it is nearly done. At the base of downtown's towers, all that remains is a wound that covers 16 acres and cuts 70 feet deep, a hole in the heart of Manhattan. This was the scene today. These men and women are working in the pit, the 7-story Trade Center basement. They're down to the bedrock of the island. Front loaders are shaking out for inspection what is among the last of the ruins. When you're down in the pit digging, what have you seen?
I've seen many organizations working hard together, getting along. I've seen the look on people's face like they still can't believe it even though it's months later.
Dan Henry, a Port Authority cop, is helping to recover the human remains.
When we do have a recovery, I don't think of it as a bad thing. I think of it as the beginning of closure for families that have been through just pure hell.
Today, it's hard to picture the 7 buildings that were lost. 7 World Trade Center was 47 floors. Building 6 had 8 floors. Buildings 5 and 4 were 9 floors each. The towers, 1 and 2, were 110 floors each, and number 3 was a 22-floor hotel. Piece by piece, those buildings have sailed on barges across the Hudson to a landfill on Staten Island. Here, the ruins are separated, sorted, and searched again. Tons of concrete roll by before there's even a hint of a life, a frequent flyer card, or the keys to the office. They've manned these lines every day, weekends, holidays, every day. And after 8 months of that, for many, there's a sense of loss at leaving.
When it's all over, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to say goodbye to this, but we will. And though this operation will end, the friendships and the bonds that will form never will.
Jim Luongo and Bruce Bovino of the NYPD and the FBI's Richard Marks run the operation.
Give me some sense of what you've found over the last 7 months or so.
It's life interrupted. It's just bits and pieces of people's lives. You see all the cars that we've brought up here. As you go through and try to get the personal effects out of the cars, you find golf clubs, you find birthday presents, you find kids' toys in the car. It's just a snapshot of these people's lives that abruptly came to an end.
The most overwhelming was the wedding invitations. That sort of struck home. Of course, in that field of debris and mess out there were these pure white wedding invitations still with the little doilies on them.
There have been a lot of other things like wristwatches, rings.
About 500 or 600 pieces of jewelry. And it's amazing, an entire building you saw before destroyed, crushed, and how a diamond engagement ring, a wedding ring survives. I just feel it's just meant to be found.
And while we were there, they were meant to find another, a lady's ring, which they will try to match to a family. There's no rhyme or reason here. Gold survives and steel doesn't. The cops sorting through the cars say this wheel and engine are all that's left of a U.S. Secret Service armored limousine kept at the World Trade Center for visiting heads of state. A few of the most remarkable things they found are hidden away in a storage container. Richard Marks took us inside.
These are items from the airplane, pieces, mechanical parts that we've recovered.
Looks like a landing gear strut.
We have a landing gear strut on the side.
And part of an engine back there.
This one, I believe, is from Flight 11, which crashed in the North Tower.
How do you know that?
By the serial numbers on the engines.
And next to Boeing lies Balzac, the bust of the French novelist sculpted by Rodin.
These were Rodin statues from the 105th floor. Would have been in the main lobby of Cantor Fitzgerald. This part of the sculpture is one of the three shades adorning the top of the Gates of Hell by Rodin, which is a huge bronze structure.
The Gates of Hell.
Right.
The landfill is a field of lost souls. 135 victims have been identified here that were not found at the World Trade Center site. Families are calling nearly every day. What on earth do you tell them when they call and say, Deputy Inspector, are you going to find my wife, my son, my dad?
I tell them that we're going to try our hardest to do such, and we won't stop until we finish.
Woman called you. You'd found her husband's ID in all of this, but she was mad at you because you didn't find his body.
The reality is not everybody's going to be found. That's the very hard, horrible reality.
Michael was Michael. He was single-minded. He was wonderful.
Firefighter Mike Ragusa responded to the World Trade Center. His father, Vincent, and mother, Dee, have not had news since. And after all this time, they're not sure they want to.
Because if he's identified at this point, it will be through DNA. And instead of wondering what happened to him, I will know as for a fact that he was blown to bits. And as a mother, that's very hurtful.
The Ragusas are one of the few families who refuse to have a memorial until the last hope of identifying their son is gone. For them, there is comfort in not knowing.
My grandchild says, for no reason at all, Uncle Mikey's in Pennsylvania. He's 4 years old. He just says it all the time. And my daughter says, maybe he knows something we don't. But having him identified through DNA, then we will know. He's not in Pennsylvania. Does it sound crazy? Whatever it takes to get through it, believe me.
There are two kinds of suffering now, those who don't know and those who do. More than 19,000 human remains have been collected. Families have the option of being notified once at the end or being told every time a DNA match is made.
A year before this happened.
Nicole Petroselli has been told about 4 recoveries of her husband.
I choose to know every time. I feel like, you know, if he was sick and he was dying, I would have taken care of him. So this is the way I can take care of him. And when he's identified, I want to know and I want to take him home.
Mark Petroselli, a commodities broker, had just received a promotion that put him in tower number 1. His remains were first identified the day after his memorial.
There are many hundreds of families, in fact, most families, have never received that first notification. And it looks likely at this point that they won't.
But it's important for the families to remember that the recovery, the identification process will continue at the medical examiner's office for quite some time, probably almost a year. So there is hope, and I never give up hope, that I'll get his wedding band back that I want so desperately, or that I'll get another phone call about some other remains. A couple of weeks ago, I got a phone call that they found his heart. I never imagined that his torso wasn't intact. And I never imagined that his heart would be picked up off the ground in the middle of fire and rubble.
You count yourself, though, among the luckier families.
The luckiest of the unlucky.
Families who have not been lucky tend to see the World Trade Center site as sacred, a final resting place. But that sentiment has not stopped the beginning of reconstruction. They're already working on the subway that ran on this track, carrying 60,000 commuters from New Jersey every day. The first thing rebuilt will be the subways. Port Authority engineer Lou Minnow is in charge. He took us under the Hudson River into tunnels that flooded in the attack. These cast iron walls are 100 years old, but they held up. The light at the end of the tunnel is the Trade Center site, and Minnow can see all the way to the line's reopening in 20 months. To him, it's a way of fighting back. On September 11th, he had a different job at the Port Authority. He was general manager of the World Trade Center.
You just want to sit there and you cry because you think of all the hard efforts of a lot of people to make that happen, what the World Trade Center meant to downtown New York and then to the entire city. And then you thought about people that were trapped, people that were killed, and especially people that worked for you, all gone.
What does rebuilding this rail line mean to you?
We're saying to the world that we have survived. This is going to be our finest hour, and this will be the beginning of the rebuilding of downtown New York.
Exactly what will be rebuilt will be debated for months. Michael Bloomberg is the new mayor of New York.
A lot of people are going to have a say in what is built here eventually.
Yes.
But tell me about you. What does the mayor of New York want to see right here?
I think the first thing is that we want to complete the recovery effort. Second thing is you do want to make sure that we repair the infrastructure underground and find whatever that right memorial is above ground. The Vietnam Memorial took 5 years before everybody said, this is it. And then they really did something beautiful, and we've got to go through that process. And you will build buildings that will be some residential, some commercial, some office, some cultural, maybe some athletic facilities, not clear whether that fits in. But it's just too early to tell.
What fits now is down in the pit. It's the last steel standing from the Twin Towers. There's a reckoning in spray paint. Port Authority PD, 37 dead. New York PD, 23. Fire Department of New York, 343. And of course, 2,420 others. Only a little more than 1,000 have been identified. How many can be found in the last of the ruins? That question weighs on Officer Dan Henry, because among all the people he's looking for his brother, Fireman Joseph Henry.
If in these last days Joe isn't found, this is going to be his final resting place, along with hundreds of other people. What do you think they should do with this?
I think there should be a nice sized park with lots of beautiful trees and flowers and benches. And I think a big wall, big memorial wall with each victim's name on it. And because you don't have a cemetery to go to. This is going to be the place we go on his birthday or Christmas. Say hello. So.
We thought you'd like to see what they've done with the other target of September 11th, the Pentagon. This was the scene that day, and this is the same spot now. They expect to reopen this section on September 11th this year. 189 people were killed at the Pentagon. 5 of them have never been found.